r/explainlikeimfive. Sweet Roof 2144 says, explain like I'm 5, why is Africa still underdeveloped? I understand the fact that the slave trade and colonization highly affected the continent, but fact is African countries weren't the only ones affected by that, so it still puzzles me as to why African nations have failed to spring up like the superpower nations we have today. Signifraxifrus says, have you seen mining pits in your country? That's the level we've allowed Africa to develop to. Times New Indian says, 2 children, Jack and Amy, are given a school business project to make $100. Jack already has $50. He buys a $50 lemonade stand. He sells the lemonade at $2 a glass. After selling 25 cups, he's made back the $50 he spent originally. After selling 50 more, he's completed his assignment. It wasn't really that difficult. Jack is representative of a rich country. Amy has no money. What can she do? She can't start a lemonade stand. She doesn't have the money to buy materials. She could borrow some money, but no bank wants to lend someone who initially has no money. Like, if you want a mortgage, you need a down payment. Amy can't do that. She has no assets to sell or use as collateral because some robbers came and stole everything she once owned. Also, since Amy's brother is also poor and hungry, the little money she does somehow make, he steals because he needs it. Even after he's bought his food, he keeps stealing from Amy. After all, poor, little, scared Amy can't fight back. The banks who won't give loans are investors who fear instability and poor returns. The robbers were the European empires. And the brother is a corrupt despot dictator, the African elite. Amy is the African masses. r/explainlikeimfive. Ngam says, explain like I'm 5, why are many Western brands, cars, apparel, houseware, etc. considered luxury brands in non-Western parts of the world? Especially as many of these products are partially or entirely manufactured in non-Western countries. Deep State Secretary says, because certain countries in the Western world are cultural hegemon whose media and ideas is regularly consumed by the rest of the planet. Josvin 135 says, all of the most in-demand luxury brands are Western and primarily European because they are the oldest, that have the greatest history behind them, and they've proven that they can maintain quality standards / hold reasonable value over the long term. Take Louis Vuitton as an example. It was founded in 1854 and was the exclusive trunk maker to the then Empress of France. Hermes is even older, founded in 1837 as a maker of high-end saddles, bridles, etc. to the French nobility. Ferrari was founded in 1939 and has consistently produced some of the most beautiful, powerful, and exclusive vehicles in the world. Luxury is all about perception. The old European luxury brands have the cachet that comes from centuries of producing the finest quality and most expensive luxury clothing, bags, cars, etc. They're instantly recognizable to virtually anyone who matters. There are huge collectible possibilities, and they generally are very high quality. It's extremely difficult to convince someone that something is truly luxury instead of just expensive. The European luxury houses accomplished that 100+ years ago and have maintained it ever since. Octomatus says, if you're a rich kid and want to earn something extra and open a lemonade stand, you'd probably pick organic lemons, since you know the customers from your neighborhood are also rich and used to that level of quality. To promote your stand, you buy an ad on the radio. It will also reach other parts of the town, but it doesn't really bother you. Now a family from a poor neighborhood hears about the lemonade. In fact, everyone there heard the ad. Nobody ever drank your lemonade though. The family decides that they want to taste it, but you don't sell it there, so they have to pay extra for someone to bring it over. In the end they pay twice the regular price, all that while being poor. In the end this was an experiment by this one family. Overall the lemonade tasted great, but it's just way too expensive for them, so only very few will do this. It's now a luxury because it tastes great but is affordable. Meanwhile in your rich neighborhood, they don't mind paying the price since they have more money. They also don't have to pay someone to bring lemonade over since it's already sold next door. It's not considered a luxury because everyone drinks it. r/explainlikeimfive. Dracocopus1 says, explainlikeimfive, why coyotes are considered a separate species instead of a subspecies of wolf. Zeandran says, you have discovered the secret of biology. All the species stuff is kinda fake and is just categories we make up. All the rules for what makes a species are just rules of thumb and the whole thing is actually mush. What Masson says, there's a biological concept called sympatric speciation, where a separate species can branch off despite living in the same area as the original animal. There's no real reason for it other than behavioral barriers. Coyotes and wolves just act different and don't typically want to associate or mate with each other. The more these behaviors get reinforced, the farther apart the two species get. Canis is kind of an odd genus though, since basically all canids can successfully interbreed. In most other animals, the ability, or lack thereof, to create viable and fertile offspring is typically a factor in determining species. r/explainlikeimfive. Screenplay says, explainlikeimfive, what happens if a light source would slowly decrease the wavelength from visible to non-visible light? I.e. if we had a light that could emit light from purple to mauve. Do we see an instant change from purple to nothing, or does it slowly fade out? A Wildman Appears says, there is no purple wavelength. The visible photons with the shortest wavelength are blue. Let's assume you start at blue. As the wavelength shifts, the blue light will appear darker and dimmer, but also your eyeballs would start to feel uncomfortable from looking at the light. When the wavelength shifts enough, the blue color will dim to nothing. Now the source is emitting ultraviolet light. We're in blacklight territory. Min 11235 says, there is a super easy way to see what happens here. Look at a rainbow. Rainbows and prisms refract light, and different wavelengths get refracted at different angles. So if you look at the blue side of a rainbow, you'll see what the transition looks like. As it goes to violet, the color starts to fade and then stops. Some people can see some of light, and so some people see more of a rainbow than others. Fun fact. A couple caveats, this is an approximation, because once you get to certain wavelengths the refraction and reflections don't work right and the reflection doesn't happen. Radio waves are too long to be affected by raindrops, for instance, and UV gets fully blocked by the atmosphere, so isn't present. Lower energy UV is also not present in enough intensity for you to truly not see it, because those shorter wavelengths get scattered by the atmosphere, meaning intensity drops with the violet and blue lights in rainbows. Some of the fading is because of this. r/explainlikeimfive. 41 Shadox says, explainlikeimfive, why is the game development industry laying off so many people? It feels like every day I see a post about some big game development studio laying off a large chunk of their workforce. What are the causes of this? Bald Eagle 1991 says, many responses here are citing the layoff cycle. Aka, you hire once you have the investment at the start and lay off at the end to look more secure for further investment. Yes, this happens, but normally, this is a lot of temp workers, short-term contracts, and most employees would be hired knowing this is going to happen. What is happening at the moment is kind of unprecedented since the birth of the modern gaming industry. We are seeing thousands of game devs losing their jobs across the board. People, in some cases, who have been with these companies for over a decade. I know this is anecdotal, but here in the UK, I know 4 guys who work for big game companies, all being laid off, or in departments suffering large-scale layoffs. In all cases, it's been confirmed by the higher-ups that it's rising costs and wages being behind this. This is resulting in a lot of restructuring, where a lot of work is being outsourced to cheap third parties in Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia. You also have a lot of multinational large-scale purchases and mergers, which always results in restructuring layoffs. Bung Fu says, financial year is nearly up. They need to make it look like they are making a profit with lack of overheads. JCM 42899 says, there's a myriad of reasons, but the majority can boil down to COVID being a massive monkey wrench in the works. The economy is struggling, taking loans is more expensive than it was a decade ago, and companies are being bought out, which makes some positions redundant. Again, this is a very simplified explanation, but that's what you were here for anyways. Platypus says, a number of reasons. 1. During lockdown everyone was staying inside and playing video games. That pumped a lot of extra money into the games market, so studios expanded. 2. There is a thing called the hype cycle. Studios use their growth to show that they are real companies worth investing in. Then by cutting back show that they are responsible. This is both bullshit. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.